horned purple monster collapses to the ground, limp and barely moving. He stares at the man before him, who stands silently with a sword and says he is the hero who defeated him. It is impossible. Sliding the sword behind his back, he lets sparks fly as Piri tells the Demon King Madeline that he held out for a long time. A pillar of light strikes his sword, and the Demon King warns him this is not the end, and that after his death the Demon Kings will come for him. Wielding the Ragnarok caliber, the protagonist attacks the Demon King, who cries out in pain and declares this will be a fight for eternity. Kneeling, he looks at the hole in the ceiling, thinking that at last he has pacified the Demon King. If this were one of the RPGs he'd ever played, the credits would be rolling by now. A few years ago he was called from the earth as a hero, and now he is finally free, and the boy is happy about it. People watch him, saying that at last the brave man's victory has come. In the kingdom of Hajimano, the protagonist Shoto walks with his group, while everyone shouts that the great hero Shoto has returned victorious, and his teammates smile behind him. King Zamaisel himself is the first to rejoice at the hero's arrival, and tells them that thanks to them, this world has been saved. The king approaches the main character, puts his hands on his shoulders, and tells him he deserves a special reward, his daughter, as the main character looks on awkwardly. The king tells the boy he will be married to Princess Trappy. The girl looks displeased at first, but smiles sweetly when she sees the hero. Taking his hand, the girl invites him to help make the kingdom better together. She says gloomily that he, with his deadly weapon, and she. The princess raises her hand and announces that they, standing at the head of the kingdom, will unite this world, and the armored knights look at her in surprise. People start shouting, "Long live the kingdom of Hajimno," and the main character thinks everyone is overjoyed and that the story will end with a wedding to the princess, who is only a princess but very respected. The protagonist raises a hand in a stop gesture and asks to return to his world, while the girls and the king smile grimly. The main character remembers sitting on the bed playing games. Now he feels out of place in this world. One day he was suddenly called here. They named him a hero, sent him to slay the Demon King, and banished him from Penniless, while the king offered to take the stick and fight, and even the princess called him a ragamuffin. The boy fought every day and nothing else. He was already tired of that life. The king watches him and sighs. The king asks the man again about what he has already said, that the magic that summoned him here is a one-way ticket with no way back. Sadly, he reports there is no way to bring the man back this way, and the man feels uneasy. Their country is strong because of the heroes, so there is no point in finding a way to send them back. He knows it's a waste. The king tells the protagonist to forget it and marry Tropia, saying they will make their kingdom great together, and the girl stands and smiles. Realizing they never even considered sending him back, the protagonist knows they deceived him, but he still wants to return to Earth. The main character remembers those times, the phone, online games, the konbini, lying in a mess on the bed eating sweets and spinning gacha, then waking in the morning thinking he'd be late for classes while looking out his bedroom window. Usually he remembered that he had finished school but still had no job. The young man laughs nervously, says there is nothing to worry about and that he wants it all back, while the king and princess stay silent. The man wonders if being stuck here now means he has no idea what is happening on Earth. The king says he understands him perfectly, but brings up getting engaged to the princess, and the girl calls him trash while the king asks whether she means him. The main character sees no way to have fun here. There are no manga or anime. His favorite series is probably already finished, and the king smiles as he says nothing can be done. Turning to the knights, the king tells them to listen and start preparing for the banquet, so they obey and run off. If the king announces at the banquet that the hero Shoto is engaged to the princess, Shoto will not accept it. He knows they want to present it as a done deal and will not allow that, so he runs away but someone stops him. The princess angrily demands to know what he just did because it was a sign of disrespect. She asks him if he is somehow unhappy with her, then looks at him as he closes his eyes, thinking that Tropia is not a bad person after all. She thinks that if he proves too difficult she can cut off his legs, and with heroes on their side the rest does not matter because she will protect this country, and he is stunned by her frightening look, searches for words and turns to her. The main character tells the girl this is impossible. Because of a physiological reaction, she suddenly looks at him, restraining her anger. Angry, she remains upset, but he thinks she will finally understand him, so he apologizes and leaves. The king tells everyone the hero is trying to escape and needs to be caught, so someone summons a magic storm, and another casts a magic net to catch him. The main character in the web asks how this obstacle compares to the attacks of the Demon King and his generals. This is a light breeze. Carrying a cleaver, a girl approaches him, and he realizes her aura matches the Demon King's, so he runs away. The protagonist uses the high-speed movement Magic Biddish and flies through the wall a great distance. Realizing he has escaped, the king says they need to chase him, and the girl sees he has gotten away. The girl promises she will make Shoto's hero her own and looks through the hole in the wall. Flying through the air, the main character says he thought returning to Earth was impossible. After defeating the Demon King, the hero escaped the kingdom, possibly beginning his wanderings. The same can happen when you complete an old RPG. He looks down and sees a river. Thinking he needs to rest, he uses magic neutralization and falls. Falling to the ground, he notices his magic control is off and realizes that at a lower level he would have died. He gets up and thinks he should drink some water, and though it seems very clean now, someone stops him. The horned girl warns him the water is not drinkable and must be filtered and boiled first, and she is surprised he drank it anyway. A moment later, he falls to the ground with a stomachache. The ogre asks the girl what happened to Katrina, and she says something bad happened. The man asks the boy if he drank the river water, and the boy says it is quite possible. They do not know what it contains, so the girl goes to fetch herbs to remove the poison. So far, the main character had only bought and drunk water, so he had no idea, but now he's smarter and gets up to use poison neutralization magic himself. Seeing it, the man says it's amazing and wonders if he's a wizard. If the pursuers suddenly hear he's here, there will be endless problems. Smiling, the main character says he's just a guy who can do magic, and the Ogerman asks about that ability. The guy realizes the man is not hostile, but he still needs to be cautious, as the man looks at him thoughtfully. The girl ran in carrying herbs and told them she had found an antidote, and they both looked at her in surprise. When she asks the man if the stomach is already gone, he plans to say he used magic, but sees wounds on her hands. A man pretends he's sick and urgently asks for this herb, then after eating it, he says it helped and saved him. When the girl asks if the herb works so quickly, he says he gets immediate relief from medicine, and she is glad he is feeling better. Seeing the girl hurt because of him, the protagonist touches her hand, and she says it's just a scratch and nothing serious, but the protagonist uses recovery magic to heal her instantly, and the wounds close. Surprised, the girl admires that he can use magic, while the guy says he only does a little magic. He realizes that if that's the case, he wouldn't have needed the herbs, since magic can neutralize poisons, but the man denies it. He lies to her, saying he is the kind of person who sometimes cannot get rid of the poison, and suddenly he wants to say something. The Ogerman asks the man if he is going somewhere now, and the protagonist asks them to listen to him carefully. The protagonist waves his arms and says he's just wandering aimlessly. The ogres stare at him in confusion. They all burst into loud laughter. The man says he fears that if he leaves the boy alone, he will eat a poisonous mushroom and die, so he invites the boy to his home, but says he will need his help. The main character grins and asks him if he is afraid to invite someone he just met to visit, and suddenly the man grabs him by the head. Putting his hand on him, the man says these words come from someone who foolishly drank river water and rolled on the ground in pain, but the other man disagrees. The girl says her father is very determined and self-reliant, and the main character agrees. Smiling, the main character says self-sufficiency is a quality he needs for his new life. One man shakes the other's hand and says he'll be happy to help them. He's the lumberjack Brust, and his daughter Katrin stands beside him. The main character tries to say he's a hero, but stumbles and backs down, while the girl looks at him with a questioning expression. He realizes he is giving up his status as a hero and will from now on live away from battles. A man loudly announces he is Shoto and that he is going to the mountains for the first time, and Katrin and her father are very happy to meet him. The three move on together and begin a calm new life. The man is amazed by the first mushroom he finds, and Katrin warns it is deadly poisonous. In the heart of the forest stood a wooden house, with a stump and an axe beside it, and so the main character's new peaceful life began. He asks what he's supposed to do anyway, and Catherine laughs when she notices how nervous Shoto is. Brest points at a tree stump and asks Shoto whether he has ever chopped wood, and Shoto, thoughtful, says he has only seen it done in anime, but the man still does not understand what it is. A man tells the boy to watch closely and demonstrates how easily he chops wood. The protagonist says it was amazing, but the man denies it. Now the man wants to try and has the right tool, so he draws his sword. Ex Ragnarok Caliber is the sacred sword the gods made to pacify the Demon King, and it can create a magic beam. The man, surprised, asks if he really means to chop wood with a sword, but the protagonist insists he must try, and chopping a log for him is like cutting soft tofu. The main character lifts his sword and strikes, and the shockwave slices straight through the mountain, leaving everyone stunned. Because of this, the breast falls to the ground. Catherine screams. The guy swears and notices the girl has passed out. However, the main character catches her in his arms and is amazed by how soft and pleasant she smells. Waking up, the girl asks the guy what just happened, and he says it was just time magic rewinding. The protagonist rewinds time a little, then Breast says he feels something happened recently, and the protagonist tells him what he thinks. He believes that in real life, skills and upgraded gear do not help at all. The protagonist grabs an axe and vows revenge, drives it into a tree to split the log, but the two halves fly into his eyes and he screams. Catherine stares at the man in shock, and the main character says everything is fine because it doesn't affect him at all, which leaves her even more shocked. Russ says this happens to beginners who try too hard. You can chop wood even with the force of a Catherine. When the girl asks the guy to watch, the main character watches and thinks that in Brust's house, where he and his daughter handle everything, he will manage. Surprised, the main character watches the girl successfully chop wood, calls it surprising and amazing, and says she smells delicious. Breast puts his arm around the main character and smiles as he asks if he is doing all right. Catherine gets embarrassed and runs to her room. He wants to say something else, and the guy listens. The man says this is the first time he's talked this long with a new acquaintance, and that he likes people like him, while the girl asks her father to stop, but he just laughs. The main character is pleased when the man says he likes people like him. The girl says she will go cook something to eat. Smiling, the man is glad she has made a friend her age. He turns to the other man and asks him to keep her company while he is here. Raising his fist, the protagonist says she will take care of her, and that he can learn a lot from Catherine, most importantly how to chop wood. Sometime later, a stack of chopped firewood stands behind the main character as he works on another log. After a little training, he mastered chopping wood, which felt like defeating a high-level monster, and the wood could then be turned into coal for cooking, heating, and warming water. Smiling, the main character says it is interesting. Though he has discarded the title of hero, he will continue to grow like a novice lumberjack. The man asks about the hero's title, but the boy says nothing. Breast looks at the firewood and says they definitely have enough now. The boy did a great job, then he will show him other ways to use the wood, and the boy is surprised. Smiling, the main character says this calm, unfamiliar life never stops surprising him. Smiling and clutching the log, he thinks this looks like a challenge. Dusk falls, 3 plates of food sit on the table, and the main character is surprised to see boiled rice. The man starts eating rapidly, saying he thought a place so remote would only have meat, and the woman asks how he can eat so fast. The protagonist shows his empty plate and asks for more. The girl agrees, and Russ notes the protagonist seems to like the spices Catherine added. The mantle needs to get started because they're having stew today. If Shota weren't here, they'd stretch it out over 3 days. Now that Shota is here, they'll eat it up in no time. The girl asks whether the boar he caught was big enough. Fresh meat is best for stew. Catherine says the broth and fat are not wasted. Steam rises from the plate. The man thinks Catherine cooked the meat so well that it still smells like an animal. The guys start eating quickly because they think the herbs give the dish an unusual aroma, and it tastes very good. The protagonist asks for more. The man says there are 7 plates, but it seems impossible he could eat that many. Shipper explains it takes a lot of effort because of magic and skills. A man says something in a language Catherine does not know and explains that in his home country it means thank you for the food. It was very tasty. The girl thanks the guy for eating everything. Since arriving in this world, Shoto has learned many important things. Seeing him walk with a plate, she asks whether he is getting more. The main character says he wants to wash the dishes. The girl tells him there's a barrel of water outside. A man goes outside to look for a barrel of water and notices it is very dark, with only the moon shining. The protagonist walks down a dark street, watching the sky and the moon that lights everything around. A few days ago, he defeated the Demon King. Today, he came to the palace and immediately ran away. A man washes the dishes and watches the door. Now he sits at the table with a family of ogres, full from stewed meat. Shoto's life will unfold, but it all began when he was summoned into this world. The girl suddenly turns to Shoto, who looks at her questioningly, then says they've filled the bathroom and asks if he'll go, which surprises the protagonist. Running off happily, he says he'll go right away, but the girl says they need to figure out how to heat the bath water. Shoto says if there is water for washing dishes, there will be water for the bath. They will heat it outside over a wood fire. The girl understands this is a good method. The mission to heat the bath water has begun. The protagonist volunteers to handle it. The man notices his determination, and the protagonist laughs, saying he will show how to manage such difficult work with ease. She wishes him luck. The man says he's leaving. He takes the firewood he chopped himself. Looking at the stove, he feels bewildered and thinks he understands why there's a stove downstairs, while wondering why the wooden bathroom doesn't catch fire. He suddenly realizes there is an iron vat beneath with boiling water, and as the water heats up, a wooden brush is lowered onto it. He's amazed that it's all happening out in the open. It feels very atmospheric. Quickly, he lifts a huge vessel and pours water, tosses in firewood and coals for kindling, then uses a fire magic he calls Start Small. Shoto smiles, pleased, as the wood starts to burn. The water is starting to heat up. Meanwhile, the girl climbs onto the bathtub in just a towel, and the guy decides to watch the fire so he does not get too hot. Now he could boast about his hero skills, but he knows he's not a hero right now, just a boiler maker, and Shoto climbs into the bathroom and says it's very warm. The girl steps into the bathtub and says it feels very good and that she loves bathing in it. Seeing the scene in his head fills him with pride. The girl says the water is just great. He thinks he might have a talent for it. He says it was unexpected. The man keeps heating the water over the fire and says it's fine. Then the woman says the water is too hot, and he asks her to wait a second. Quickly, the protagonist uses the cooling magic. She says she's too cold now, and he looks up to see the girl standing at full height. Pleased, the man looks at her and thinks that, as he expected, Oger girls have impressive figures. Without warning, the girl screams, demands that the man turn away, and pokes him in the eyes with her fingers. The boy lies on the ground, covering his eyes. A girl calls it vulgar and walks away. He saw something beautiful and will keep it in his heart using his memory skill. The girl's father suddenly appears, says he's the last one going to the bathroom so he should go first, and the guy stares at him in shock. The main character wakes up on a pile of hay inside a house, looks up, realizes there's a ceiling, and reaches up. The man pours water into a basin, says the weather is always nice and there are no monsters nearby, then he begins washing with it. This joyful show presents civilization like a vacation in a tent camp. Russ stands holding a yoke in his hands, tells Shoto he got up early, wishes him good morning, and notices the bucket. The man puts the yoke on his shoulders and tells the boy he will fetch the water because it must be collected every morning. Keep going back and forth until the big barrel is filled to the top. The man thinks for a moment and begins to conjure something. He realizes that using the storage magic inventory will force him to collect all the water at once. He drops the subject and asks Brust to lend him another one. Brust says Katrin has another one. Even though magic lets the main character finish everything in 2 counts, his goal is a quiet life, so he must rely only on his own strength and shoulders the yoke. Telling himself the hero's skills are useless, the boy is overheard by the man, who asks about the hero, and he says it's nothing, he's just Shoto's water carrier now. They reach a pond, and the main character is surprised to realize it's the same river where they first met yesterday. As the man fills a bucket, the main character asks whether the water is poisonous and whether they know how to collect drinking water here, and the man says they do not. He already knew, first you must boil it and use it only after boiling. Drinking water goes bad in a day, so they make it every day. He carries the water and boils it. The protagonist is struck by the division of labor and says peaceful life is wonderful, but Brust tells him he is clearly exaggerating. A man fills a barrel with water and tells the other man they have collected plenty. Brust agrees and says they do not need to go anymore. Until today, he handled everything himself. Now he says that with him on board, work is 20 times more efficient. The man considers the number and says it is very large. He thought he had plenty of modesty but was wrong. 0 is definitely a lot. The main character turns to Brush as a mentor and asks him for guidance on what to do next, while the man asks about the mentor. The man says he spent all this time teaching him a new way to live, admits he is a bad mentor, and Shoto calls him modest. The main character fills the buckets and suggests going back, while the man supports the guy and asks what it is. The man tells the boy that despite his small stature, he is very strong because lifting buckets of water takes strong legs. At first the man says he just has a high level, but Brustus does not see what level has to do with it, since the man clearly has extraordinary physical strength. The protagonist realizes Brust and Ketcher do not know that everyone has a level, because the concept of levels does not exist in this world, and Brust is level 15. The ability he gained here is called level recognition, and it let him notice the levels of everyone he saw. After watching a trading video, he was able to develop effectively, and when one man told another he lacked the courage to train like that, the other said he lies down from fatigue every 3 days. Confident that he has reached the maximum level, the protagonist has gained many skills and surpassed the limits of what is possible, even defeating the Demon King alone and becoming free. He had comrades who tried hard but reached their limit and still remembers them. Watching the girl hug the guy, the main character thinks about when they'll manage to start dating. Angrily, he realizes he had a chance to, but he was probably inexperienced back then. Frost asks the man why he made that face. The main character flinches and apologizes, saying he only has bad memories, and the man says different things happen in life so he will not ask. The protagonist agrees that Brestol's photo makes him look very young, but his gaze is strikingly insightful. Shoto asks why he feels he's only truly living now that he's lost everything, which had been on his mind. A man comes up behind him and touches his back. With a basket in hand, the girl greets her father and Shoto and says breakfast is ready. They happily go to the table. Catherine says she added more, especially for Shoto, and the main character is surprised by this. Catherine smiles sweetly, and the main character feels her smile warm his heart. The protagonist says goodbye to his past and welcomes the future, wishes everyone bon appetit, and starts eating. The man tries it and says it's delicious. The woman asks him to eat as much as he can. He says he's as nimble as ever. The local diet is centered on potatoes, yet Catherine's stew and bread are both delicious. Now the protagonist is about to begin the mission to eat the bun. He says the first thing you must do before eating it is cook it. Curious, the man wonders whether it is made of wheat and kneaded into dough, then turns to the main character. Catherine waves to the man and invites him to come dig potatoes with her. He runs over, saying that providing food is a priority. One man says they really need to leave because there are more people to feed now. Another says she cooks wonderfully. Catherine says sheepishly that it is just boiled potatoes. Smiling, the protagonist thinks she is very cute. Brust asks the guy if they convinced him, gives him a light tap on the back, and the guy's leg leaves a dent in the ground. Brest was surprised this morning at how strong the guy was, and the guy says he just trained a lot. The man warns the guy that if he keeps this up, Catherine will fall in love with him. The girl is angry with her father. She strikes him and shouts that she is nothing like that. The blow makes the ground shake, and the protagonist asks whether this is the ogre's power. An ogre's strength is several times greater than a human's, so its chest is probably as strong as a buffalo's. Their exceptional physical abilities allow them to live even in remote areas. Suddenly, the protagonist wonders why the two of them live in such an isolated place. The man says it's time to dig up the potatoes. Grabbing a shovel, he gets ready. He thinks it's safer to stay here and keep a low profile. If he's discovered, trouble is unavoidable. The hero who saved the world became a fugitive. Haney also broke off the engagement with the princess. Sneezing, she asks him to deliver this letter to the head of the guild. The man suggests she might rest. She thinks about how absurd it is, criticizes this moron's foreign policy, finds the situation inside incomprehensible, notes they are on the verge of bankruptcy, and knows they cannot relax here. The princess says that if this Shoto were here, the problem was not to beat around the bush, but to simply threaten him. Angrily, the girl grabs the pen and calls him an idiot. Thinking it over, the guy finds something scary about the princess. He senses she will treat him like a tool. A girl draws a man and thinks about him. By then the harvest had already been collected. The protagonist picks up the vegetable and says he can make something like tororo with it because it can be eaten raw. The girl tells him it is poisonous in any case. Catherine says the poison can only be removed by boiling the potatoes several times or by soaking them for a week, and the protagonist is surprised by how long it takes. Shoto thinks there are so many poisonous things in the world, and he ate one this morning. That means he definitely wouldn't be able to survive here alone. Taking Kitrin's hand, he says he owes everything to Brust and Catherine, and she says she is not worth the gratitude. The girl laughs shyly, and the guy finds her cute, also noticing she has very large potatoes. The protagonist says they bought a lot when the potatoes ran out, and Brust tells him not to worry, because if he leaves them for a while they will grow back. Shoto knows they are relying entirely on nature, but he asks about securing a stable harvest and says it would be nice if he had tried growing sweet potatoes. When a man imagines a peaceful life, farming comes to mind. He's tried it, but wild boars ruined everything every time. Shoto asks if it's the same stew, and the man confirms. He says a steady food supply would be great and that he's thinking it over. He says that if they work the field and drive off the boars that come to him, they will get both fresh meat and a harvest. She is surprised that he plans to sow the field. The main character happily agrees and tells them to leave it to him. Confident, he says it will withstand the Demon King's army and his dream will come true. The girl asks about the dream. The boy wants to eat buns but doesn't know how to make them, and the man in Catherine says they don't know either. Rust warns it will not be easy. A man says a long journey begins with a single step. Catherine offers to help him as well. The first step in preparing the ingredients for the buns is to create a perfect field. A man cheerfully announces it's time to start, first calling himself a hero and then a plowman's shodil. The man says that because he decided to plant a potato field, he can have whichever plot he wants plowed, and the main character is very surprised. The boars have already done their job there, which is better than cutting down the forest again. The guy says it helped a lot. The protagonist wonders where to start, studies the holes to see if the boars made them when they came into the field, and then Bruce knocked them down. Then the boars became stew, and the work of the breasts will not be in vain. Everything in this world is connected. Picking up a potato, the protagonist asks if it is a regular one. Brust says he once bought it in the village. This is a humble potato they gave him for next to nothing, and in the end, he only managed to grow thin potatoes that wild boars ate. The man says he saved some tubers. The other man asks whether he matters that much to him. They are ogres who hunt on a whim, not farmers. Since they trust him, the plowman Shoto, the main character joyfully and unexpectedly grabs a basket of potatoes. He realizes it looks more like a regular tuber than a sweet potato, and laughs. Shoto knows it's time to use his hero skill after being completely useless in the battle against the Demon King, and now he swings his potato. Boy applies his elementary school gardening lessons. That knowledge comes from another world. He tries everything he learned. He cuts potatoes. Magi session gay adi birolados. As he imagines how badly he wants French fries, his mouth waters. He knows this isn't true. You should cut the tuber into pieces. If you plant it whole, it will produce fewer shoots and the potatoes will grow poorly. That was Brust's mistake. The main character moves, conjures an object with his hand, and spins it while using cutting magic called the space cutter. He then uses a cutter to slice the potato into several pieces, and if you are not careful, you could tear space and destroy the world. If Shoto uses magic carefully, his life here will be normal, and the girl notices it. Taken aback, the girl stares at the house as the protagonist uses magic to rewind time and offers to go back. The main character asks the girl what happened, telling her not to sneak up like that, and the girl asks the guy if he cut the potatoes. An automatic field made him unaware of nearby enemies and allies, and he used it without thinking, yet he did not sense Catherine's presence. The main character thinks about the girl. She says she brought him a snack and wishes him a good job. Struck by Catherine's kindness, the protagonist thinks he'd like to marry her, and he holds a pot in his hands that the girl says is already old. So when he finishes eating, let him break it and scatter the fragments nearby, because the clay of the pot will fertilize the earth. The girl points to the earth with her hand. Catherine adds that her dad will make her a new potty. The man inspects it and asks whether Brust did all of it. The girl admits she sometimes feels everything is possible. She even sewed her own clothes and inspects them. The clearing is her father's work. In reality, they had to do it all alone. She stands with her back to the man who says it must have been difficult. The main character cheerfully announces that there are now 3 of them, and they'll have 10 times the strength. The girl thinks about the number 10 and suddenly laughs, and the guy stands there looking displeased. She raises her hands in delight and tells him that when he says that, he seems certain they will succeed. Saying she can't lose to Shoto, she has to get back to work and wishes him luck with the field. The protagonist, with a pot on his head, asks her to rely on him. The pot is empty because the man ate it all, and he says Catherine's cooking fills him with energy. Then he points and adds it's time to cultivate the soil. Using magic, he marks the area to be plowed and throws a clay pot onto it. The protagonist uses tremor, an earthquake magic, causing the ground in the selected cube to move. Next, the main character controls his magic and gradually handles everything, after which he actually acquires a field. Next, he plants the potatoes a short distance apart, placing each tuber in its hole. Those elementary school gardening lessons should not be wasted, he says. The man laughs and presses a dirty finger to his face, leaving a smudge. Then he says happily that for now he is the potato farmer's Shoto. Night falls, Shoto sleeps on the hay, snoring and jolts awake when he hears someone squeal. Suddenly the protagonist jumps up, shouting that the potato thieves have arrived, then casts speed magic. Whiz. He suddenly wakes in bed to see 2 boars. Angrily, he says he'll know right away if anyone comes to dig up potatoes in the field. This is the magic warning siren. A man rubs his hands and angrily approaches the boar, telling the boar he will not give him his harvest, and the boar prepares for battle. Several boars charge the main character at once, catching him off guard, then they all stop abruptly. This all happened because the man used the space-stopping magic cramps, which said the soil must stay soft for the potatoes to sprout well. The protagonist rests his hand on the boar and uses a hovering magic feather to lift his leg, and he will lift them up. A man braces for the blows and tells the boars the law of the jungle is very cruel. Then the blows and the boar's cries are heard, and he stands over the fallen animals and tells them they will have a barbecue tomorrow. The main character says you should first drain all the blood from the carcass, but he might use his storage magic inventory, creating a black hole in the air that he reaches into with his hand. Shoto drops the boar carcasses into the storage and says time stands still inside, so the meat will stay fresh. He goes home and thinks about building a fence strong enough to withstand an attack by thieves, but that could put Brusting Katrin in danger, so he decides to take care of everything himself. In the morning, the main character first fetches water and then begins to eat. At breakfast, the main character tells everyone that boars came to the field last night. A man is surprised and tells him he is very unlucky. However, the protagonist raises his hand and tells them not to worry because he has taken care of everything, and the man is surprised since Brust didn't hear anything during the night. The protagonist proudly says he's not a bad hunter and can be called a boar slayer. Brust and Catherine laugh because Shoto changes his nicknames every day. Concerned, the man asks what's happening with the boars since they need to cut up the meat right away, and the three of them go together while the main character says he wants to show them something. The man opens his magical space and Borgarchus falls out, and Shoto explains it is storage magic he invented himself and calls an inventory, so both are surprised because it is very expensive. Shoto is stunned to learn someone else may have the same inventory. Brust says he once saw one placed in the workshop with the same name. At first, the boys set out to kill the Demon King with only a stick and no store-bought gear, asking only for a copper knife and a medicinal herb, but now his equipment is custom-made or a legendary artifact. The man tells the boy that, in any case, he is incredibly good at magic. The boars are perfectly preserved, and Shoto understands they seem to like it. The girl happily tells Shoto it's amazing and just wonderful, then the protagonist says he has a request. The guy asks the ogres to teach him how to cut up a carcass, then he turns to mentor Breast and realizes he called him that again. Laughing, the man awkwardly holds his head in agreement, while his daughter says he is so cute when he is embarrassed, the father called cute by his own daughter. Rust tells the man he will show him how to hang a boar from a tree with a rope, and the main character keeps asking him. Learning to butcher a boar is important for Shoto. He needs to know how to drain the blood, open the belly, and remove the entrails, and this skill will help him when he starts livestock farming. The main character thinks a wild game dish is the essence of a peaceful life. Catherine notices her father glowing with happiness and knows it's all because of Shoto, who laughs awkwardly. She tells Shoto that her father is always worried about her, so they must be very careful. She recalls the man asking what would happen when they dug up all the potatoes, and they were actually worried about that too. Explaining how to deal with the boar, the man asks the guy if he is watching, and the main character says yes. The girl says her father was very upset over the failed crop and the boars, yet it was unexpected that a man who drank poisonous river water could lift their spirits. Stunned, the main character points at himself and asks whether this is about him, and the girl says yes and thanks him. Then the man explains it needs to be left to dry and asks Shoto if he understood. The protagonist who heard it all says he understood. The patron admits to the man that she will keep helping him. Surprised, he realizes he needs to focus on Brust's explanation and tries to concentrate while the woman awkwardly prepares to say something to him. She tells him that she and Dad are really happy to have him, and Shoto stands with a serious expression. Confident he could focus, the protagonist ended up completely forgetting what Brust said and had to review what his memory magic recorded. Meat hangs on ropes, and the man tells the protagonist they hang it here for the kitchen because the air here is quite dry, and the protagonist listens. Doing this outside in the shade is best, but other animals can eat the meat, so the girl puts it on a wire. The protagonist cuts the meat in half and is surprised by how much fat it contains. Brust explains the meat won't be tasty, so it doesn't need to be hung, and the man understands that fatty meat holds a lot of moisture and therefore spoils quickly. The protagonist looks at a piece of meat and considers trimming the fat, but he can't do it no matter how strong he is. Breast and Kachin laugh. The girl comes to the table and asks the man for a piece. He asks if she wants to throw it away and hands it to her. She opens the cabbage with food and drops the pieces into it. The man looks at her in bewilderment and says this is their lunch. Catherine winks happily and says this is their lunch, that everything is ready and they can enjoy it. A man takes a piece of meat thinking he does not really like pork, but the cooked fat looks like a flower, so he tastes it and is amazed. He suddenly raises his trembling hand and shouts that it's very tasty, saying it doesn't taste like fat at all. Smiling at the boy, Rust and Katrin look at him. Rust explains that if it is done right it will curl up immediately, and the fat can be used to make candles or a healing ointment. The boy asks if ointments and candles can be made from it. He's amazed by how much can be drawn from a single boar. This is life. 2 days later, Katrin touches the meat and says everything is as it should be. The protagonist tries it and realizes it tastes like dried meat. It is much tastier than what they sell in the store. Holding a boar skin, the man says that although it is dried, it tastes better than fresh. The other man is surprised by the skin and asks to see if it is tanned. Bruce says he won't do it. The woman says she placed the meat, and Bruce says he and Katrin will go. Surprised, the boy asks whether this is for the village exchange. Bruce tells him to look for clothes. They will find something suitable for work. The protagonist is amazed by how much they care for him. Bruce smiles and says that although he has top-quality gear, it's inconvenient in the fields. Katrin says good clothes will last a long time. He believes that good clothing is expensive in this world because cotton farming is undeveloped here. The average person usually owns only 1 or 2 garments, so in summer many people just wear underwear. For some reason, that's how it is here. Thinking it over, he looks at Katrin. She smiles and says he's staring so intently, and he realizes why summer is called the time of love here. The main character knows it's autumn and getting colder, and the man says everything is ready. He slips on a crude backpack and says 3 dried boar skins should be enough to trade for some fabric. The protagonist is thinking about something. The main character tells Brust there are 3 boars here and that should be enough. He thinks about it and asks himself why he went silent. The girl says they really need to go find clothes for Shota, and although she does not want to leave, they must find fabric. The protagonist realizes that, when you think about it, it makes sense because half-humans like orcs were minions of the Demon King who fought humans, or so people say. In this world, demi-humans are often oppressed, yet the protagonist personally fought the Demon King's generals and their subordinates. Most of them were people who became the Demon King's minions, and with smiles they attacked their comrades, killing many. Half-humans face a higher risk of false rumors, and it is easy to predict what will happen to them. The man says he'll go to the village with them, so no one will dare to harm them. Brust asks how he plans to do that. Shoto gives them a thumbs up and says it's a secret. The man laughs and says it might work on him. All 3 then head into the forest with mountains visible in the distance. 2 carry loads while the man walks lightly. The dangerous road would take an ordinary person a whole day to walk, but the former hero kept up with the ogre family and they sat down to eat together. Now the protagonist says he will put all their things in the inventory. The man says the family getting a new friend is already a celebration. They will always be happy to see him, even if he only visits occasionally. Catherine announces happily that they should celebrate, and when they find the fabric, the girl will sew him some comfortable clothes, leaving the main character sweetly surprised by their kindness. They arrive at the village, and the main character is surprised to learn it is larger than he expected, with about 100 people living there, and the man at first plans to wish them well, but then decides to ask what they need when he sees them. Brest points behind him and explains they came to trade meat and skins. A man nearby says he smells like a country bumpkin and is not fit for trade. Catherine asks what he means by the strange remark, and the man leans in and says he should check it out. Awkwardly, the girl turns away and hides behind her father, while the main character, standing behind, grabs the man by the shoulder. The main character then hits the man in the stomach indiscriminately, leaving him in pain. Lying there choking and clutching Katrin, he smiles at her, while the other man says he was angry and immediately hits him in the stomach, and he tries to say something. The man shouts at Shoto, vowing he will pay for this. Then the protagonist grabs him and unleashes the horror magic Endless Nightmare. This man will spend 3 days wandering through nightmares and confronting those who bother Katrin. They need to go. At first she looks at him in silence, then agrees with him and they all move on together. Smiling, the main character says this attitude is simply outrageous, and suddenly someone shouts that there are ogres here and that demon minions do not belong in a place for people. People at the back are asking why this scum is walking here and who allowed them to enter and leave. Laughing, a man picks up a stone from the ground and throws it at Brust, telling him to go back, but someone's hand suddenly stops the stone. The same stone hit the man's face when the main character used a returning bullseye spell. The man calls it outrageous and cruel, and the guy thinks someone is forcing them to throw stones, so if they get hit back they shout that it's wrong and want to finish quickly and go back. They shout that he is a useless monster, and that one day a hero will kill him. Shoto turns to them, bewildered. He weighs their words. Those who try to do good, who gave him a chance to live a new life, now want him dead at the hands of a hero. The protagonist hoped to handle this quietly, but he can add some fire to it. People wonder why it's so hot here. They notice the roof is on fire, and someone even thinks the Demon King has returned. Fire magic erupts from the main character, scorching heat and flames fill the sky, and everyone, including Brust and Cadian, is shocked. Shoto pompously tells the crowd to think about their behavior. They will do this in hell. The crowd flees in horror. Laughing, he says that while they think about their stupidity, they should burn everything to the ground. Julian holds him from behind and asks him to stop. He tells her it is too much. She looks at the sky and asks him if he did it. The main character was supposed to act normal, but he suddenly grew angry, and a fireball about 100 meters across appeared over the city, moving in a maze-like pattern, and he put out the fire with a snap of his fingers. The villagers seem to have been thrown back into the past. When the Demon King and his army attacked, the villagers were on the verge of death. Brust asks what it was. The man explains it was ordinary witchcraft. The protagonist says these inhabitants are simply terrible and wonders how to re-educate them. Brust says their race really fought on the side of the Demon King. But here they can get everything they need by barter, and that's the best they can hope for. He says, discontentedly, what he's realized. The man says many people were in the demon army's ranks. One person says that's a lie. These people are not like those monsters. There is no reason for anyone to fight alongside the demons. They do everything to shield themselves from the truth. The main character is still the same, convinced he is right and alone in his purity. They are obsessed with money and power, people who are impossible to understand. The main character believes he will definitely have to take part in their education later. He said the local market is quite large for a village this small. The ogre said this place had become a staging post for traders. The girl confirmed it and said they gathered there in caravans and then moved on. Whispers spread that ogres had appeared. When the boy rolled up his sleeves, the man stopped him, turned to the old woman, and said they had come to trade furs and meat. The ogres said they needed fabric and asked how many pieces their material would make. She said she would pay for all 3 pieces, and he said that was too little because last time she had paid the same amount for 1 boar. The old woman told him to shut up and was the only one willing to trade with them at all. If they didn't like something, she told them to leave. The ogre said giving 3 pieces of fabric for 3 boars was strange. The girl replied that 3 pieces make 1 shirt. The protagonist felt Brusting Katrin didn't deserve this. In that world, decent people are always robbed. Therefore, he must punish those who do this. The man pointed at the old woman and said it was a robbery. She argued that a young man like him couldn't understand much about trading. He used the banker's rank like magic. It showed the market situation in the capital, he said. The hero said they should get 15 pieces of fabric for 3 boars. She asked how she could tell he wasn't lying. Besides, it's close to the capital and prices vary. Grinning, he asked whether that place was more important than the capital. She said it was true. After all, it mattered more than any distant capital. It had its own rules, and he had to obey them. The girl turned to the main character as he began to say it was good he had learned the village was more important than the capital. The man said the head of the capital's central market overheard their conversation using remote communication magic. She was surprised he could do that then in the capital's central market. He said the economy was in total disarray, especially in that backwater. He was the head of the kingdom of Hajimno's central market, which controlled all trade and sought. The old woman recognized him. The residents began to recognize him too and said it could not be. The guy turned to the man and realized the hero was using a call center. Insat said he had crossed the king over the princess and had fled so far away that no one could find him. Shoto replied it was a long story. If he asks him for help, the other will tell the king about him, but he is willing to do it for Catherine and Brust. The man said he'd tell him about the princess and the others later, but that promise hasn't been kept. At heart, Insat is a traitor. For him, a promise is like a binding contract that must be kept. The protagonist said he wants to know what's happening with the fabric purchase. He asked how much it would cost if he had to pay in boar meat and fur. The man saw as many as 3 wild boars there. He noted the meat does not need to be processed for a long time and can be split into 2 batches because it loses weight. There will be 39 pieces of fabric at the current price in this case. Brest said he had partly expected it would cost so much. The girl was glad they could make many clothes. The hero turned to the man and said they wanted to give them 3 sawn-off shotguns for 3 boars, and the man told him it was daylight robbery. Poor logistics and a lack of information sources raised prices in the Borderlands. The difference was so great that these robberies were causing the economy to collapse. The man asks the protagonist to spread this everywhere and stays silent about his summons before the king. One man said they'd figured it out perfectly and he'd send the coordinates now. Another said he'd go in person to check. A woman asked him to stop, saying their village would go bankrupt otherwise. Sat told the protagonist they owed him for killing the evil spirit Dalmat. The woman was surprised. When she asked again about the Dalmat, the man was already saying goodbye. Domia Tuckland came up with the idea to boost the market and is worshipped by traders. She asked whether Mr. Delma was an evil spirit. Claiming to destroy the country's trade relations and to side with the Demon King, he was clearly human. Demonic energy remained in the portrait. He believed the Dalma was using it to expand its influence across the country. They told him those were just rumors. They called him an idiot and said a human has no place in the demon army. He said this needs to be dealt with. Katrin asked what the hero was talking about. He told her to forget it and said they owe 39 sawed-off shotguns for 3 boars. The man asked the elderly woman about it, and she agreed. The hero said it was great that the exchange had gone well. The man stepped in and everything went very well. A woman approached him and said she thought it was all just a coincidence, then asked who he was since he could do magic and had connections with many people. Catherine said it would be enough for 10 pieces of fabric, so she could sew something for her father. Her father told her to sew something for herself. She threw herself into the protagonist's arms and thanked him. From his research, he knew all ogres were very strong, and he could barely breathe. He thought he was dying. The girl apologized to him. Laughing, the protagonist told her not to worry and to carry on. Catherine said it was only because of him that they could swap so much fabric, which was hard to believe. She was happy he went with them. The man said they couldn't treat them that way just because they were ogres. Even while fighting the Demon King's army, the hero never treated any race as his enemy. It is a personal choice each person must make for themselves. He said that if you simplify it a lot, it looks like that village. Breast had said earlier that the demi-humans in the village used to be less oppressed. Contacting the kingdom to inspect this place was tedious. Things hadn't been easy before he defeated the Demon King, and he felt they were even harder now. He remembered when the man told him he had been very rude and would not forgive him for it. The demon laughed and said he would show him what power the Demon King had given him. He asked to see his true form, the demon at the heart of the Hajmino kingdom, the evil spirit Dalmat. Their king invented trade. Everything people make is used by the king to keep them under his control. Only beings with true power make him bow. Since the heroes refuse to obey the Demon King, he will simply destroy the Demon King. He is the man who uses the memory magic projector. They began talking about portraits and wish fulfillment. The paintings gradually drain their energy and transfer it to the Demon King. The old woman said the Dolmat had tricked them. She said they were completely wrong. Half humans are not bad at all, and there are traitors among humans too. She had no idea why she couldn't grasp something so simple. The curse lifted the moment the hero burned the portrait. The old woman said she needed to apologize to the ogre girl. Once a skilled merchant, this stingy old woman later found people saying they were too stupid. He landed a decisive blow on the demon. He admitted he'd forgotten to erase it. Residents grew surprised to discover he was a hero. They bow and ask him to forgive them. At first the man thought it was a problem, but considering what will happen to the Brusting Katrin, it was good that the residents found out about it. Addressing the villagers, he said he was the hero Shoto and asked them not to mention what happened today because he was hiding his identity. The main character said they all had a lot to understand. Speaking loudly so everyone could hear, he said people can make mistakes. They can fix their mistakes. Residents began praising the hero. He said it was good he had not burned the village, that people thought it best not to anger him, and that he was scarier than Dalmat. He persuaded the residents, and they will also keep quiet. The main character sat on the box inside. The man said if this continues, Princess Trapio will someday find out where he is, and he won't know what to do then. As he tried to go back, a woman stopped him, turned to him, and told him to wait a little. She said he had restored the village to how it used to be. The old woman said she was sorry she couldn't thank him properly. The boy told her she shouldn't do that. These days he breeds birds in his spare time. The hero asked if he could take one from her. She agreed and asked how he would get it across. He said it would be no problem. The ogres were surprised by the eggs. Brust said he hadn't seen any like them for a long time. The girl asked where he had gotten them. The man replied that he told the villager a story, and received a kalak and eggs as a sign of reconciliation. Hava Luckbird is like a ground-dwelling rooster. The hero assured them he had made peace and that the villagers would not harm them again. The man asked whether he was serious. She said it was amazing and thanked him. Her idea was to celebrate with an egg dish. He said it was a great idea, but asked her to keep a few. Katrin asked what they were for. He said they would make them hatch into chickens. The hero wanted to raise the hula lock chicks so they could get eggs for themselves. In that world, he tries to raise someone for the first time. In elementary school, he bred aquarium fish. All of them died. He was determined to grow the egg. Trying to steady himself, the man said everything was fine because he was a hero who knew many spells. She asked him what had happened. She said he mentioned a hero. He denied it, saying nothing like that happened. Now a cattle breeder, he said he will work hard. He's handled everything on his own so far, and while protecting his friends, he single-handedly defeated the Demon King. She turned to him, he told her to rely on him, and she asked whether it was hard for him to handle everything alone. The hero completely forgot they were with him. The man admitted he wasn't sure he could hatch the eggs. He suggested they try one first and then take the rest of the eggs. That was how he had been taught before. The man agreed to start with one. The protagonist thanked them and said that if he ever lacked strength, he would know who to rely on. They told him they were always happy to help because, thanks to him, they had received a lot of fabric and the villagers had become kinder to them. Now he is a reliable comrade. You cannot have a peaceful life alone. It is better shared with friends. In short, the girl said the omelet was ready. He was delighted and wished everyone bon appetit. Breast was surprised by how much food there was. Seeing many colors, the hero was glad when yellow appeared. When they can get eggs regularly, there will always be enough food on the table. They will certainly hatch chicks. The hero asked Catherine to give her an egg. Catherine handed him a basket with only one inside. He asked for another egg. She said everything is in the omelet. He had just one egg left. Not knowing what to do if the chick didn't hatch, the boy felt like it all depended on him, and he carried a heavy responsibility. The girl apologized for accidentally spending it all. She was determined to make as many omelets as she could. He reassured her that everything would work out. He said even one egg is enough. Heroic animal breeder Shodo uses all his strength. He will ask for their help, then carefully lift the little chick. The hero considered how to plant the egg. A suitable temperature, a safe environment, and a few days. It makes no sense for him to stay home all this time. Keep the egg warm and avoid breaking it. She asked him what had happened. He said he wondered how to hatch an egg without it distracting him from his work. Katrin said it would be difficult. She suggested using magic, and the protagonist came up with an idea. Wanting to use magic, he asked the girl to hold the egg. The protagonist initially uses ice magic and volcanic lava. He will create an iron barrier tougher than stone, then use gravity magic for better control. Everything is now connected. Magic fused to form the ball. He called it the heat-preserving magic and the magic seed. Repeating magic and magical, he cannot come up with ordinary names. The man said he was now using a magic seed. Gravity is under control, and if you touch it, you can feel its magical warmth. He chose the blade for a final test. If he hits it with his ball, this blade can crush the troll's skull. The hero struck the egg, but it stayed intact. Not a scratch on him, he was very happy, and the girl was glad for him. He credited her for everything. Seeing her blush, he found her very cute. She said she had done nothing. The hero said he wanted to practice a little more. He had to head out to work in the field, catch him and wish him luck. Seeing the boy, the man said he thought the boy was busy with the egg. He asked what was on his head. An egg sat there. The protagonist said he had taken steps to prevent it from breaking. Brust said if the man says so, there is no need to worry. His magic is for combat. This spell, stronger than his battle magic, was made for peaceful purposes. The man cut down many trees and said expanding the field seemed like a good idea. Since relations with the villagers had improved, the ogre said they could get new saplings. The hero said that put them one step closer to making buns. All that remained was to grow wheat. He said they needed to start and asked if the stump needed to be pulled out. The man said he couldn't pull it out, even with all his strength. Grabbing a shovel, he said they first needed to dig around it, but the other man had already pulled it out with his bare hands. His hero power makes it much easier. Le Mans always said he had to work with a shovel, yet the main character pulled him out easily, showing amazing strength. It was all training, he said, and from that day on he could call him a router, Shodo. Those stumps have long, thick roots, so removing them without a horse or an ox is hard. The breast also started pulling out stumps. He did it on his own. Ogres are far stronger than other species. For him, it's because of the level. A giant cicada was under the stump. a demonic insect can attack people. The parasite tried to pounce on the egg, but failed. It was close, he said, and if he had not strengthened the egg, it would have broken. The man said it was fortunate that the hero caught it. The ogre said cicadas were delicious. The man was surprised that people ate these insects. A peaceful life could sometimes be frightening. The hero said he'd gotten the hang of it and could now be called a skilled lumberjack. One man said he was making up weird nicknames again. The other said they weren't weird and that self-hypnosis had been proven to improve work efficiency. Seeing Ensat surprised the hero, who told him he had an egg on his head and was doing something incomprehensible again. The man said he went to speak with the villagers. That place was far from the capital. The man was surprised that he chose to check everything himself. Inset replied that someone had forced him to act. The resident said that because of him, they had begun the path to correction. The situation inside had started to improve. He hadn't thought he'd have to do this after winning. Until now, the situation had been unclear, but it looked like they were bargaining for one out of every 3 of the Demon King's generals. The boy asked how that was possible. He called trading with a general quite bold. He said it looked like the work of the Dalmat's subordinates he'd defeated, and though they were part of the demon army, they looked like ordinary people. Across the country, it was the same. If this is a person, they can be trusted. The harsh truth was that the main political force and the generals were only human. He said it was a harsh truth. The hero asked the man whether he had received his message. The man answered yes. That was why he had the question. As a friend, he said he wants to make sure the former hero stays alive and does not cause trouble for others. It is his duty. The man asked the protagonist to introduce him to the protagonist's patrons. He thanked the man who had picked up Shoto and asked him to look after him. Surprised, the ogre can't believe the main character counts the head of the central market, an outstanding person, as a friend. The man said someone had once helped him so much that without that person, he would have died. Brust said he was simply incredible. According to the ogre, the hero had saved them all, and his daughter began to smile more often. The man replied that spring seemed to have come for Shoto too. They began talking and said those two were dragging their feet. The man felt this was too much. He believed the relatives around him were happy for him. It still reminded him he was unemployed. The girl said dinner was ready. The man asked whether the girl who had entered was the ogre's daughter. She was afraid of him. Catherine said this was the man the hero spoke to through magic. He said he'd be scared too if someone like that came up to him. The man asked whether he wanted to join them for lunch. His daughter cooks as well as the capital's chefs. Ensat said the food was delicious. The man said Catherine's cooking is the best. The girl said that at first only she and her father were at the table. Then the main character arrived and the man joined them, and she was very happy. Ensat replied that he was very surprised to hear the hero was hiding on the outskirts, and he had not expected it at all, but he cannot worry now. He is even a little jealous because he has to work every day, and since the Demon King was defeated, there is even more work to do. The man said he finally enjoyed the piece that arrived today. The ogre suggested going fishing. Everyone thought it was a good idea and decided to go for it. The girl said the main character was clearly a skilled fisherman, and he laughed. He believed that was not the case. He had no fishing experience. His skill was the worst. The man asked to be called Angler Shoto. Ensout said the hero had never caught a fish in his life, and the man took offense. The girl then promised she would teach him. The man said there was a good place that way. Ensout noted that the air outside was very clean. He decided to go fishing. He asked Catherine for tips on catching fish. When she asked if he knew anything, he said he did not. The girl then said she would teach him everything as his older sister. To his surprise, Catherine was older than he was. The man said the girl was only pretending to be a teacher. She told him to be quiet. The boy stroked Catherine's head, laughed, and called her cute, and she said she would not teach him. Bowing, he apologized to her. The hero felt she looked like a choreowin. The girl said you first need to take a long stick and shape it into a fishing rod. He thought the weather was very warm. It probably thinks the same. He had missed this kind of rest. As a precaution, he used magic that would wake him if the fish bit because he was so sleepy. When the magic worked, she grew afraid for him. The man said he thought the fish had taken the bait. A large fish bit the fishing rod. The hero believed it would be easy now that he had defeated the Demon King. He promised the fish he would catch it, and the girl warned him to be careful because pulling too hard could end very badly. He spun out and eventually hit the wall. Surprised, the ogre realized it was all because the line broke. The man said he would give it his all no matter what Shoto did. A few fish got to the hero. Catherine asked if he was all right. He realized he hadn't felt this foolish in a long time. He told her everything was fine and that he was completely calm. The protagonist said he would catch every fish right now and used freezing magic. The girl said he wasn't himself. She told him to stop using magic. He apologized, saying he had lost his composure, and Catherine said it was good that he understood. She told him he was rushing, but it was his first time. Again the fish bit. The girl asked him to calm down. Once again the fish was big. The girl told him to watch how the fish would pull and offered to help him hold the rod. A tug on the fishing rod sent a fish leaping onto the shore. It was massive. She held it over her head. Impressed, they decided to fry it for dinner. The hero told Brust that merely summoning magical fire was boring. Brust said it wasn't boring and it was quick, so there was no problem. The man suggested using telekinetic collision magic. They now had a fire to cook the fish over. The spell was powerful enough to level a city to its foundations. The boy said that what helps the big can also help the small. He could be dangerous, so they should stay away. The man laughed. She apologized that he had to deal with the fish, and the astronaut began to worry. Ensat said first you wait for a fish to bite, then you catch and eat it. He had already forgotten all the problems at the market. The vacation was wonderful. He was glad he had checked everything himself. He said things got even harder after one hero escaped. The guy said he wanted to know what kind of hero he was. Laughing, she said they looked like good friends. The man said they had shared both joys and sorrows with him in the capital. The boy said they had sat on the tail of a doll mat and then handled it. The ogre called it impressive, like a hero. The guy replied that he didn't have to invent a hero. The man said he didn't. He just thought he had done many amazing things like a hero. Shoto said he couldn't do anything complicated at that level. He said he didn't know what everyone was saying about him. It's good he lives there and has no worries. The boy believed he was very kind. Coming back from the battle, he looked like a fearless warrior. Laughing at the fish that escaped the hero, the man decided to freeze everything. She turned to him and said the fish was ready. It was his first catch. After one bite, he found it very tasty. The man said he would not tell anyone they had met. Still, the princess suspected something. Not expecting Her Majesty to come, the man asked him to stop because she couldn't be there. His friends were surprised he knew the princess. The girl saw the boy tending potatoes, and he said he was a farmer. The hero set off to fetch water from the river. She wished him a safe journey. After filling the glass with water, he returned home and saw a stranger at the door. The hero believed he was seeing that man for the first time. A stranger greeted him. He said he'd heard there was a hero in a nearby village. The villagers had talked about the hero. The stranger urged him to calm down. The man said he was no longer a hero, but a farmer. Struggling to question the inhabitants, the stranger gave a soldier a drink and finally learned what he wanted. It's true, later they beat up the soldier, saying he planned to destroy the village. The boy said he had tried to keep everything secret until now and had even forgiven the villagers. The stranger said he had come out of curiosity. He said he was talking about a book. That book was called Visiting the Lands of the Kingdom of Tuganer. The stranger wrote that book. The man said he must be a true master because he managed to publish it. He looked like a man from another world. The stranger said he preferred being called a scientist instead of a writer. While living in Japan, the main character bought many ebooks and developed respect for writers, sending them reviews and including his own work and ideas. After he did so, his account was blocked. The stranger said the air there was pleasantly humid. Then he could take off his cape. It turned out he was a reptile man. The girl called him a frog and apologized. The man laughed and said that in some ways he really was a frog man. The ogre said a guest had arrived. It turned out to be a frog. The girl asked him to stop. The man said a community of half-humans like him had learned the neighboring village was welcoming to their kind. A group of organizations outside it is trying to cultivate the land there. The man said he didn't realize they were being discussed. The stranger said it was amazing. Rust said they faced persecution in their homeland and had nowhere to live, so they had to arrange everything themselves. The boy asked about the pursuit, and the man said people believed the half-humans were the Demon King's minions. At sunrise in the small Dacia Fascino, the wheat field was fully lit. It's true the duchy has vanished. The girl said a strange light swallowed it and everything turned to ash. The frog said they still don't know what it is and called it a tragedy. The boy began thinking about how the duchy had been before its destruction. The huge ogre claimed he was an immortal duke, and would sacrifice all the inhabitants to the demon king in exchange for an indestructible body. No matter how you burn or cut him, he still won't die. He vowed to turn them into a submissive army of the dead, replenish his immortal army, and then destroy the kingdom to the ground. He unleashed hellfire. The monster called him a fool, saying that if he burned everything he would not be able to win. The flame was destroying his body. The hero thought that letting him turn them into undead would make everything much more complicated. Then he burned everything. It felt like too much. The man said it would be great if their small field grew larger. The frog turned to face the main character. He asked him to point out the field. The frog said the reason was that the field was a sanctuary for peaceful life. Working on the book taught him a lot about this area, and he enjoys it. The man replied that if that was the case, he just needed to show it and asked him to follow. He said it was his pride, but the plants still weren't growing. The frog replied that the stems were quite weak. He said he sketched this potato for his book. Next to his potatoes, they now look more like beans. He asked if he knew they were common in the eastern part of the country. The frog realized his plants weren't getting enough nutrients. Some sprouts weren't getting enough nutrients. He was also overwatering them. He asked what the man had used as fertilizer. The main character asked what fertilizers were. From what he saw, the frog said the land was not suitable for farming and needed to be properly prepared with fertilizers. The boy said it was the first time he had heard about preparing the land. The frog asked why they had trusted him with the field. The man replied that the hero was the best among them at growing potatoes. The girl agreed. Shoto said, sounding disappointed, that the frog had told him that too. They reassured him that coming was the right thing, so there was no need to worry. When the frog said they would prepare fertilizer, the boy asked why the frog was so happy. He said there would be more potatoes. The protagonist said that meant it was time to get started. The man asked what was needed to make fertilizer. The frog said human waste could be used as food. Simply put, it's what food is broken down into. The reptile asked where they had gotten rid of all this stuff. The man said they had dug a hole for it. The frog said that was wonderful. Straw, ashes, food scraps, and fish bones would also work, he said. She said they would collect everything now. The boy was surprised that all of this could be used as fertilizer. The frog said that in the past people made fertilizer from whatever was at hand. Even if they prepare the field carefully, it will not be as fertile as the lands of the Dukai. It will be an excellent place to grow wheat. The man felt inspired. He said the wheat field was his dream and added that he wanted to eat Ketron's stew with bread. Perhaps he can show Brust that same landscape again. The boy asked the frog to help them. Klolok replied that since the hero asked him, he would certainly help. The man pointed to where the toilet is now. He said that whenever they dig a new hole, they move the cabin. Frog thought it was an interesting tradition. The man asked about his earlier remark that it would help the seedlings grow faster. Klolok said it is basically fertilizer. Do not rely on this alone, because it causes more harm than good. It must be processed properly. This process demands real courage from them. The protagonist pinched his nose. Klolok laughed and said that long ago peasant communities had to do the same thing. The boy said he understood that tending the field and living a peaceful life means overcoming yourself and fighting every day. He said he would help as well. They finished. The temperature and humidity were just right. He would make good fertilizer. There was a very unpleasant smell. Once fermentation is complete, the unpleasant smell should fade, and the scent should resemble yogurt or alcohol. He said he understood and asked if the point was for the fertilizer to smell good. They told him it was just their method, which explained the unpleasant smell. The smell will fade after a while. By midday, it will be better. He asked whether fermentation was a good method and was told it was simply the fastest. The girl said they stink and need to go wash up. The boy said his nose is used to it. The frog said when that happens you can't smell it anymore. The main character said he is quite good at heating water. Klolach replied that he actually dislikes boiling water and prefers it warm. He said he understood and could maintain the desired temperature and bring the water to the ideal level. The frog felt surprised. He claimed the hero heats water perfectly. The man said he just conjures well. It's much easier than preparing fertilizers. The hero claimed to be the creator of fertilizers. The frog told him they needed to make a beautiful field together. Klolok then became part of their peaceful life. They sat down at the table and ate. The man asked if he swallowed his food right away and was told that frogs sense taste through their esophagus. They savor their food with every swallow. The hollow-looking ones carry an egg with a similar structure. It should hatch soon. The girl said she had succeeded. She told the man he had done a good job, said everything was ready, and asked him to step outside for a minute. When he asked what she had come up with, she showed him his new clothes. Surprised, he said the size fit him, and he should show it to everyone. Klolok remembered that Catherine planted something yesterday. The clothes fit the hero perfectly. The girl said she had sewn them so they would not tear during work. After he apologized, she said it was okay even if it breaks. The chick started to break out of its shell. Everyone was surprised to see it hatch. They kept a close watch on him. The egg moved. The boy said the chick was hatching. Eventually, the egg stopped moving, and they wondered what had happened. The hero announced that the chick would decide their destiny, and now everything rested on him. Physical strength magic fight lets you use tomorrow's strength right now. The girl covered his mouth and stopped him. She said the chick is doing his best now, and they can only watch him. The man said he understood. A chick hatched, and everyone was delighted. The hero said he would faint from the cuteness. With trembling hands, he reached out to the chick. According to the girl, the chick chose its mother as the hero. They told him they'd heard that chicks mistake the first thing they see right after hatching for their mother. Katrin said they now had to name him since he was part of the family, and the man said they had waited a long time and hoped he would hatch. He started listing hope, dreams, strong aspirations, and victory. From that moment, the hero decided the chick would count as a victory. She said the name was too long, so he'd just be Toraimaru. She said, to be honest, the guy doesn't know how to call people names or apologize. The hero told her to stop and couldn't believe he was so pathetic. They named the chick Toraimaru. A man said he would raise a chick and then they'd have even more hollow locks. Klolok replied that it was poultry farming. When the hero asked whether the frog knew anything about it, the frog said it was beyond his abilities, but he did know that chicken manure made excellent fertilizer. The boy realized that once the chick grew bigger, he could increase the harvest. In poultry farming, there is a high risk that the birds will be eaten by wild animals. Refusing to let such a cute Toramaru be eaten, the boy decided to make a home for him. The man asked whether the main character planned to build a chicken coop. As a carpenter, he said he had to do this often. The guy asked us to help him build a chicken coop. The man asked them to trust him and said he did the right thing. Klolokam and the others planned to build a house. They needed enough wood. Klolokam said they would need a lot more if they later dug a canal for a rice field. One man suggested going to cut down trees. The man held him back. He said the trees to be used for construction must be dry. If not, they will rot during processing, while trees in the forest take years to dry out. They buy them in the village. Thanks to the hero, they could sell the skins and meat, while getting wood is now much easier. They arrived in the village, and the girl said it would be great if the frog went with them too. Vilok said the round trip felt like a journey, so he'd rather stay and look after the pitch. He told them not to worry and assured them everything would be under control. The protagonist told the father and daughter to go to the market. A boy watched a grandmother share her eggs. She greeted him and he told her to look because a chicken hatched from her egg. The woman said he was very nice and identified him as male. The boy replied that they had eaten all the eggs except the one that hatched the Toraimaru and asked if he might ask her to give them an egg to hatch a girlfriend for him. The woman said she had recently hatched a bird and would be happy to give it away. The man said she had just saved them. That day at the market, the ogres brought meat and skins to sell. They asked the old woman to look at their wares. The old woman was surprised to see the ogres. She began searching for the hero beside them. He said they wanted to know the tree's price. The old woman said she first needed to examine the skin and meat. She wrote the cost on a piece of paper. She asked if it was really that cheap, and he said the price had gone up a lot since last time. The woman said demand in the capital drove up the price of wood. She said they could find another place if they did not like it. The man replied that the price was fine with them. An old woman talked about the tree. They said they only needed that. She asked if he planned to build a house, noted the amount was large, and said they would bring the rest later. This time she will subtract the costs of meat and skins and of carts and donkeys and treat the remainder as an advance payment. The main character arrived and asked how they were doing. The man asked whether he had brought new chicks. The woman seemed scared. She laughed awkwardly and thanked them for the purchase. The old woman said she would live honestly from now on and asked for the protagonist's well-being. He asked her to stop trembling when she saw him. The woman said she needed a tree, a cart, and donkeys, and that the payment would always be proper. The ogre turned to the protagonist. You said he still felt cheated. He disliked someone else benefiting from a trade. Someone who works there permanently has no equivalent exchange. He asked the old woman what the regular price was, and she handed him a piece of paper with numbers on it. She said they'd need a lot of supplies because building materials had risen in price everywhere since peace returned. The elderly woman said they could borrow and pay later. The man asked them to wait a moment. The hero approached the man and said he wanted to take all his money. The man replied that the bank was only for large depositors and that ordinary people should use a different bank. The banker recognized the man. Shoto told the banker to keep quiet and let Shoto withdraw the money. Seeing a table of the current rate, he said it was the same across the country, but news was slow to reach the outskirts. The man said the princess was excellent. The princess replied she wanted to beat up the real one. She was informed that the hero's bank account had changed a lot. She was told it wasn't fully known, but he used magic and flew away at once. She said he took a lot of money, and she couldn't understand why he needed it. Sat, who always worked, went on vacation. People asked whether it should be returned. The girl said it would be pointless. She ordered the knight to go straight to Ensat, watch where the deal for that amount would take place today, and go there immediately. Laughing, she said they could find the hero's trail. Then she can finally meet him. Shoto insisted they had to meet, and warned it would be a disaster if anything went wrong. He came in and said he had returned. The hero placed a bag of coins on the table. She said the hero had brought exactly 23 coins. The man asked whether she had figured that out by weight alone. He replied that this is the rate in the capital and that he will not deal with dishonest traders. They expect the rate to rise tomorrow because demand is high. If that's the case, the woman said she'd give the cart and donkeys for free. The man said he liked such gifts. The man told the hero he had to pay a lot and asked him not to worry about it. Surprised at how much wood there was, she thought Shota was amazing. Believing the hero would raise a hololock chick to tend the crops, she felt powerless. Someone turned to her. They told her to bring clothes to sell next time she came. The old woman would pay more for them than for the skin and meat. She asked whether the woman had made Shoto's clothes herself, and the woman replied they were well made and ideal for field work, since such goods are always in high demand on the outskirts. There are no skilled seamstresses in the village, so the job isn't bad. The woman said she wouldn't insist, but the girl insisted she would bring it. She asked why anyone would admire her clothes when she was an ogre. The old woman said it was not her fault and that she had not paid her bills. The woman said the old hag's hair wasn't worth much, but she was truly sorry. When a girl decides to bring clothes to sell, she tends to wait because she values her own items more than other people's. Catherine thanked her with a bow. The man said she was funny. She said it was good there was peace now, and the hero agreed. She said she was very grateful to the hero who killed the demon king. There was no need to worry now because he would defeat him again. Some said he was only a dragon slayer. The beings sensed the true demon king approaching. Heroes and ordinary people stand no chance against the true king. After crossing 3,000 worlds, the demon king will descend to earth, drawn by their hatred.